Hey guys, so today I come with you after a tornado in Houston. I think a million people in Houston are left without power, us included. So I'm here in my in-laws' place for the day, and I'm doing an interview with Steven today. So Steven here, I think you guys will find his interview quite interesting because to talk about going through so much, sorry to say, shit, so much hard times, so much against him. Because I see a lot of you guys coming to me and saying, like, will this program work if? Will this program work if? Will this work if? Is there hope if? If after seeing Steven's story, you're still thinking like, okay, I think mine's still worse than his, then hey, so be it. We had an interview a few months back with David Bailey, where he's now in prison because he had sexual relations with his stepdaughter, now in prison for that. So if you guys are still asking the questions like, is this dire after all the interviews that we published, then I don't really know what to say to you. But Steven, I guess take us back to way before the program.
Okay.
I, what happened?
Um, so there's like on a lot of people's relationships, I think there's multiple breaking points. And one of the critical ones was back in March of 2023. Um, there was a time that my wife really needed me to be present. And due to some things going on at work, due to some of my own issues, I just wasn't there. And she just felt like things were done. This is it. We need to get a divorce. Um, this is just not working. And she said that the emotional cord, the emotional tether was severed, and didn't know if that would ever come back. We had a trip planned to um, Vegas that weekend to for her birthday to see a Taylor Swift concert, and went through with that, try to kind of patch things up, but there's more hemorrhaging, more things fell apart. And since then, I had tried to do what I always did, which was when there's problems, fix it on my own, figure it out, try harder for um, about 9 months um, until I found this program. And jumping back a little bit further, if you like kind of the history of our marriage, we've been married for 16 years. We got 4 kids together. Um, a lot of what led to this was my own fear, my own anxiety, my own issues just dealing with life, with things. I had so much anxiety that, I was one of these people that was, I guess what we might call high functioning depression from the outside. I would look fine at work, I would seem fine. Um, at home, I just couldn't take criticism, I couldn't take feedback. And I I didn't recognize what was happening. So I would suffer in silence. I would just kind of clam up, shut down, or I would get very defensive. And my wife would try to tell me things, would try to tell me really critical things that were not working or issues. And I would blame her. I'd put it back. It's like, why can't she just get along? Why is she doing this? Why is she doing that? Why is she bringing this up? And over time, that just made things worse and worse. And instead of rising to that, I would retreat. I would pull back.
Yeah,
And
because I think right now I think the problem is complex because your relationship doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's almost
no,
like there is there are external problems that are happening, and then the external problems are creating internal problems, the internal problems, and then reflecting into the relationship. Because it wasn't just, for example, like when you say your wife needed you to be there, I think she was going through her own issues as well. But I think it wasn't just her issues, but I think you said your son was having some issues as well. So, and then maybe you're having issues at work as well. I mean, I don't know
mm,
how much you want to go deep into
yeah,
explaining what the issues are and how serious they are, I guess.
yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. I would kind of some of the context. I would disassociate, I guess is maybe a word to say a lot. So I would be at home and be kind of really good about doing the physical stuff. I would do dishes, or I would do chores, or I would do this, especially later in the relationship. But emotionally, I wasn't there. And there was a day where, um, in this situation, my wife wouldn't get a lot of validation. She would work at home and just feel like her voice didn't matter. And she had talked to a coworker who had given her some positive things that she wanted to reflect on. And when uh, and I had a hard day at work, and some things caused me to get stuck late and not see some messages. I got home, and she was telling me all this, and was going to give her kind of a break at the end of the day. We were talking through some things. I said, "Hey, let me just go take care of this one thing. Go to the restroom real quick. Then I'll take the kids. You can have your break and think about it." And in doing that, I came out, and one of the kids was there, and I kind of went off and helped the kid. Didn't even tell her, "Hey, I'm good. Go ahead and take the kid, or go ahead and take your break. I got the kids."
Mm.
And she comes out and sees me just kind of sitting there with the kid, kind of feeding them some food. And in her mind, it's like, here we go again. This is it. This is like, and it seems like in some ways a small thing, but it was such a symptom of, in some ways, the disregard, or the just how not present I was in the home at times, where I just, this thing was super important to her. She, and I wasn't there when I needed to.
Yeah.
Um,
How
um,
done was she? When you say she was done, how done was she with you in the marriage at that point?
we had the topic of divorce had come up before. Like a lot of times, this isn't the first time. And in my mind, it was more done, but I didn't realize how much at first. She had driven off. She had contemplated, like, I'm just never going to come back. Like this had just broke everything. Um, and she drove off. She came back later. She realized, like, this is my home. I'm not leaving here. This is mine. Um, and I don't want to walk away from this, but like, this is just not going to work. This relationship's not going to work. We need to start talking about divorce. We need to um, really do something different. And was not at the time really wanting to hear anything else. I would try to apologize. I would try to do the things I usually do, just come at it from my fear, and just try to quickly solve it. And just didn't want to entertain that. And then later, Geoffrey mentioned some issues in the family. I have a son who, I mentioned about 9 months, where I was trying to figure this out on my own, just kind of a lot of try harder type things. He had um, he had some anxiety issues and mental health issues before this, but it really started to pick up after, as he got into middle school, that summer and early fall. He had gone into um, some severe depression, we'll say, and ended up going into and he's just 12, went into a inpatient treatment center, and was there for about 10 days, and then was in an outpatient treatment center for about 10 weeks. Was doing a little bit better, and then had some other kind of severe problems, and ended up going to a residential facility, which is where he's at right now, and behavioral center, and hoping to get out here in a few weeks. And as we're navigating this, there's just a lot of other issues that are not just between my wife and I. It's something that affects our whole family, and it's just adding on to kind of other stressors.
Yeah. If I'm not wrong, too, not only was she pretty dead set on the divorce, you guys actually started the divorce and separation process as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have not done any divorce papers, but we're pursuing that at a time. We're separated. We had tried to be separated in the home for a period, and then um, a few months ago, that's where I moved out. In fact, the day that my son went into the inpatient facility was the day that I was asked to finally leave. Like, this is just not working. You need to go.
Mm.
Having you in the home is not working.
You actually
And
got a pretty, I think, like a semi long-term lease on your own, yeah?
yeah, yeah. So right now, I'm in a lease, and about halfway through that.
Yeah. So let's to summarize this whole thing, I think, you know, I think to summarize this, basically your internal state was fragile.
Yes.
Your relationship
That's
was also very
putting it
fragile.
mildly.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
put it mildly, I think, you know, relationships always break down when there's external problems that is causing a lot of pressure or creating a lot of pressure in that relationship. And I think here the pressure was coming from issues with your children, issues with your wife as well, issues at work as well. And then here's all this pressure that's coming on with you, and you're supposed to be shining, you're supposed to be performing, you're supposed to be kind of stepping up at that point. But instead of stepping up, you would just kind of become a shell in a way.
Hmm.
And so then that caused the safety to be broken. When the safety is broken, lines of communication shut down,
Hmm.
trust goes away from your partner. As trust goes away, the problems worsen, more
Hmm.
misunderstandings happen. That created even more of a shell for you. And it's just a
Hmm.
very vicious cycle where bad things happen, you crumble, causes more bad things to happen. More bad things happening makes you even crumble even more. Just right, yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
I had less and less confidence as things went on, and my wife had less and less confidence that I was going to change, that I was going to do anything. And I think sometimes we get caught in this trap where if we're not hearing negative feedback, that must mean, oh, things are getting better. But that's like the worst thing. It means that your partner doesn't trust you. It doesn't feel like bringing this up for the 10th time is going to change anything.
yeah,
And that was kind of the trap I was in, and would would just not respond to feedback well. It wasn't that kind of angry outburst. It would be defensive or just feeling horrible about myself. Just like when it would come in, just full on depression, lights would kind of go out inside. And then she's got this kind of husk of a person that's sitting there in front of her.
yeah. So I think this is the tricky part, guys, about these interviews, right? It's we're dealing with people's actual lives. So sometimes, when I say things are bad, I think it's quite disrespectful for people to listen to this and say like, oh, it's not that bad, because we're actually holding back a lot of things here. We're hiding a lot of things here because we can't, for example, like you can't talk about your son or your wife and just lay it all
Right.
out there and say like this is everything that's happening with them. You can't do that. You can't just broadcast to the world just how bad things are. So, take it with a grain of salt, what we say here, in that like it's probably a lot worse than what we're expressing here. Um, but let's fast forward to how things are like now with you guys.
Mhm.
So obviously, you haven't been in the program that long. It's December, now we're recording in May, mid-May, so 5 months in. But to say there's been like a night and day change is quite an understatement, because you were telling me about kind of the text that your wife would tell you about like, hey, I actually have hope now. I actually feel good now. I actually want you to move back in now. What's that kind of stuff like?
Yeah, it feels good. And we had there's ups and downs. And before I joined the program, there was ups and downs. There's, false reconciliation and things like that. The thing that has meant the most to me has been, um, I think, not just seeing things change in my relationship with my wife. And it's not so much the relationship itself, it's where I'm at. It's
Mm,
the kind of peace and confidence and ability to sit there when there's tough truths being discussed, sit there and not freak out when um, good things, bad things, not getting super attached to whatever the circumstances are, and just be present. I talked a little bit about anxiety. It was so bad that um, even just playing with my kids, they're in the bath, they want to play with toys. I would just feel like anxiety just even sitting there.
mm,
And I didn't know why, and for a while I didn't even know how bad it was. And then when I realized there's something really messed up with that, um, I didn't know how to fix it. Um, and in just a few months, it feels like that's changing. And my wife had sent me a text that was put up here. Essentially, where did I put that? Essentially, she was seeing the changes in what I was doing. She said, you know, things don't need to be perfect, just want to see growth. And the two of my youngest daughters were both saying just how much they love dad. They love dad. They want dad. Do you love dad? Yeah, I love dad too. Talking to mom. And just the message, you're doing great. Keep it up.
Mm.
And that meant more than any of the other kind of reconciliation because it wasn't, you know, my wife, um, she, this is a horrible situation for her. She doesn't want things to fall apart. And, but to see kind of that relationship with my kids changing, getting better, it means that there are things really in me that are coming along, clicking, improving, and that has meant a ton. And right now, there's hope. She has wanted me to move back in at the end of this lease as soon as it's up. Um, she's expressed now that she sees hope, that she kind of wants to work on the marriage again. Doesn't mean things are perfect. There's always gonna be problems. There's always gonna be stuff to work through. But the way I can show up for that is so much different than it was before.
Yeah. And I think I want to take this time to kind of make some things very clear with people. You know, the whole concept and definition of reconciliation has been bastardized, I think. People come into the programs, people come into therapy wanting that state or that moment of reconciliation. That moment of reconciliation doesn't exist, guys. The moment of reconciliation for me exists is the point, which is what you're facing now, when you get out of that spiral where external problems actually destroys your fragile state and your fragile relationships, right? We talked about the negative cycle here, where bad things are happening, that causes you to break down, that causes you to do things that break down the relationship even more, causes more problems, you break down even more, relationship breaks down even more, that cycle, right?
Mhm.
That's the fragile cycle. Once you get out of that cycle and you get into the anti-fragile cycle, where right now you guys, right, you guys are still having issues. Your son is still having the issues. Your wife is still having her issues. You're still having her issues. You're still having to deal with the trauma, stuff like that.
Yeah.
She's still having to deal with the trauma, stuff like that. But instead of that breaking you guys down and destroying you guys, is actually raising you guys up even more. It's increasing the bond even more. It's creating moments for bonding, for conversations, for alignment, for you to show her your changes, for her to show you her changes, and for her to admit that, hey, you are changing, etc. Like, these moments become massive opportunities for growth, for bonding,
Mhm.
closeness. That's the moment when you can turn that around. That's the moment when you get reconciliation in my books. And just like what your partner said, your partner's never looking for you to become perfect as a product. She's always looking for you to become a perfect process, right? So again, the moment of reconciliation doesn't come when your wife tells you, oh, everything is perfect now. Life is so fucking amazing. You are amazing. You have no flaws. Our life has no flaws, because that moment will never come. The moment of reconciliation comes when she can look at you and go, ah, I know we have some shit going on right now. That's okay, because this is the guy I can trust to deal with his own shit, but also to deal with our relationship shit as well. Or
Mhm.
deal with whatever future stuff that we don't know is going to come our way. This guy's got it. That's the moment of reconciliation. And that's powerful. That's super, super powerful. That anti-fragile state is powerful. And I'll end with this one last thing, right? We do a lot of interviews with people, sometimes pretty advanced states. Like we did one with like Liam Rose, for example. Those are pretty advanced states where they have reconciled for a long time already. But we also do interviews with people who haven't reconciled for a long time. And people always uh, like get skeptical, right? Do they stay together? Did they stay together? Well, let's see. Okay. Jason Newman, when I hired Jason Newman, he wasn't reconciled yet in the traditional sense of that word. Well, now his family is up north in Houston, um, closer to the RMHQ, basically. He's moved in with his wife, his daughter. Sabor, he's now moved in with his partner. When he first started working with me, wasn't reconciled yet. James, same thing. Jason Gerber, same thing. You see his profile. He's still with his wife. Joao is now married. So every time we do this midpoint interviews, I always tell people, like, when you do this midpoint interviews and you stick with the program and you stick with the process, your success and your upward trajectory is always going to be guaranteed. Always going to be guaranteed. We have not yet have someone who we have done this interviews with and they kept going with the program whose situation did not keep improving. That's how fucking confident we are of our processes. Because like you said, right? You feel like now you're confident in your ability to drive yourself, to control yourself, to manage yourself, but in by extension, to manage your relationship with your son, to manage your relationship with your wife, to manage and steer the ship of your life, of your relationship, essentially. And that confidence, it feels freaking good. You can sleep at night,
Yeah.
you know? So I
Yeah.
want to make that clear, right? Whenever people tout like, oh, we have a 80% reconciliation rate, I call bullshit on that, right? Because you can't measure that. You can't measure that because reconciliation is not a point, it's a gradient. To be honest, even right now, me and my wife, we're still reconciling because we have new problems. We're gonna have kids soon, right? Today we had a freaking tornado. We have all these problems coming in, and life relationship just a matter of like, hey, let's have fun being anti-fragile together. That's it. Now I want to talk about kind of like, so we talked about where you were and now where you guys are and where you guys are heading as well.
Mhm.
But that journey, you did a lot of marriage therapy, for example. You did a lot of your own therapy as well. Can you talk a bit more about
Yeah.
what you did to try to fix yourself before the program?
Yeah. I had I'd done a lot of therapy, off and on, and to very limited results, which is why I would stop. I would kind of go, we talk, you do the 1 hour a week, 1 hour every 2 weeks, and it didn't really seem to change much. And I'd go there, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, Feel like I usually feel," and not sure what to talk about, and talk about some problems, talk about what's going on,
Mm,
kind of reframe it, and then I would go back, I'd feel okay, and then whatever storm would blow, and I would blow over. Didn't really ever learn the right skills. I had gone through that. We tried medication. I tried a therapy called EMDR, which is kind of a thing that you go through to get into some kind of old traumas and kind of bring them up and kind of be in there. I had read books on cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, and I would say all of those things were helpful to a degree, especially once I started learning how to um, almost out of the therapy office do some stuff on my own.
mm,
And the books and some of the other things, I actually realized like, oh, this is what it's trying to do. Because in the office, it doesn't help. You need it in your real life. You need it when you're in that moment.
right.
And but they were all helpful, but they weren't sufficient. If they were, I wouldn't be in the situation I am right now. Um, all this could have been a lot different. And I think, and we might get into this later in the interview, but one of the things that's been really helpful is the processes that are here to help you examine and take apart exactly what's going on. I would focus on the emotions. I would do what a lot of people do, which is like hold it together, reflect, calm down, and that's okay, but it's a little too late.
Mm,
And really trying to break apart the thoughts and the paradigms and not just recognize that they're there, but how to actually kind of tease them apart and put them back together.
yeah.
That's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, because we've been making this series of internal shifts, right? It's like 40-minute videos, like an hour videos where, and this is like to the public where to the free to the public where we talk about kind of what we discuss our philosophies behind internal shifts and how to make those internal shifts, etc. Um, we have this interesting review right now on Reddit. This one guy is just shitting all over us on Reddit. And what's funny is that he's saying, you can get all the stuff that Jeff teaches from books and free stuff. But here you're saying, I tried, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
What you're saying, like there's some parts and process in the program that really helps you graduate away from, I guess, conceptually understanding it from books into experientially understanding it into how to apply it in your real life, in your specific moments that you need it, etc. What have you found were the key processes or the key approaches within the program that allows you to make that vast shift from conceptual to experiential mastery of this stuff?
I think one of the biggest ones is process of success and then the victim mindsets. And I'll start with the victim mindsets, but I think the process of success is really what's underneath even that. So in the victim mindsets, it's learning and understanding what is making you think like you're a victim, that everything is out of your control, everything's tied to external circumstances, everything else needs to get fixed before things can get better. And like that one reviewer said, sure, you can understand that, you can understand that without going through this, but I had that. I knew I felt that way sometimes. I knew I felt like a victim, or I you know would just be there wanting for things to get better somehow, but I didn't know how to change it. And what the process does is it really allows you to take apart what all of those voices are, and then pull that apart and really plant something else in its place. Not just, here's the bad. Great, now I know what the bad is. And not just be like, well, don't do the bad, don't think the bad, don't be the bad. But actually replace it with something, and in a way that sticks, a way that's emotional. And if you're blind like I was, and somebody's not even realizing how deep it is, or what blind spots you have, there are coaches, there are people to kind of point that out. There's lots of other people going through the same thing. You can see what they're doing, and like, oh, I didn't think of that, or oh, I never thought of looking at it that way. And I think just having the accountability too, of that kind of that tough love that's out there, when you are kind of in that kind of victim, when you are kind of like, I don't want to see my own shit. I don't really want to. I want to face it. I don't really want to face it. Having that is really crucial. Because if you could do it on your own, then why are you here? Why are you in this situation?
The way I see it is like, we akin these victim mindsets and this internal shift issues or internal issues with like mind viruses, right? And mind viruses is like almost like physical viruses where, a mind virus, you go into the world, you get one paradigm, that paradigm festers, multiplies, and it kind of makes you sick in a way that it poisons the way you think about things, the way you interpret things. The same way in physical viruses, you go outside, you get one tiny little virus that goes into your nose, and then they multiply, they evolve, they make you really sick, and they kind of screw up your bodily functions. The same way mind viruses screw up your mental functions as well. And the thing with mind viruses, though, is I think it's more dangerous than physical viruses because mind viruses you can't see. And it falls within your blind spots, like you said. So I think the reason why it's so hard for people to go from conceptual understanding of this stuff to experiential understanding is twofold. Number one is whatever you feel right now, it's not just because of one mind virus. It's because of multiple. It's many layers of mind virus. It's many layers of victim mindsets, many layers of DODs, as we say, etc. And for those of you who are not familiar with these terms, I would encourage you to go to our playlist on the internal shifts that we're making right now. And that will explain all these terms that we're using for you guys really well. So number one is there's so many layers to it. And number two is that they often fall within our blind spots. So often we are falling for certain victim mindsets. We don't even know that we're falling for certain victim mindsets, for example. So for you, right, you were falling for a lot of victim mindsets, but you couldn't see it unless someone was there to go like, hey man, look, it's right there. Do you not see? And not only are you blind to often just one layer of the victim mindset, you're often blind to so many of those layers and you're super, super blind. And so this thing is like really screwing up the way you see things, but you don't even know it's screwing you up. So what you think, the way you see the world, that justifies, that creates your depression, for example, that creates your anxiety, feels so real until you pull it back and you go, wait, all this stuff is just an illusion. I've been seeing it wrong the whole time. Does that resonate with you?
Oh yeah, like one of the main victim mindsets you have is the hope illusion. And what's funny is that I was like, wait, that's a virtue, right? Isn't having hope a good thing? And you talk about the different layers and how resistant and reinforcing they can be. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm falling for this all the time. I just keep hoping it'll get better. I just keep hoping it'll change. Like, oh, there's this going off my wife. There's this going off me. I have this thing, and we'll just do the best we can, and we'll just try to get through the other side. That was so much of how I would think.
Mm,
Um, hope and pray that things would be different. And I didn't take the accountability, and I didn't even realize, not that hope's bad. That's not anything that's said in the program, but it can be turned into a vice. And I didn't even realize that or how much. And then, we talk about sometimes in the program duality of mind, and I would kind of flip flop, be very hopeful, be very hopeless, and back and forth, back and forth. And and that wasn't good either. And just kind of teasing that apart, like, yeah, I'm totally falling for this, and it's BS, and I gotta stop it. Uh,
yeah, it's funny because the reviewer that I'm talking about, and the reason I'm bringing up this reviewer right now is one of my members, one of my clients, tried to respond to this person, try to help this person out, but then, you know, he makes probably 10 to 20 comments on Reddit every day, and each comment is just bashing his wife and how shitty his wife is. And then here he is saying, like, I don't need your program, Jeff. I'm so much happier without it. But I'm like, are you though? Does a happy person really go on Reddit 10 to 20 times a day and bash his wife the whole day? Do you not see you're falling for so many victim mindsets that you think you can do yourself and you can catch yourself, you can fix yourself, but like, dude, you're obviously so blind to it. And it just makes me so sad to see people stuck in that pattern of like the blind pattern of, they're falling for so many blind victim mindsets, but they're so blind that they can't actually get themselves out of it, no
mhm.
matter what you say, no matter what you do. Ah, I don't know, man. It's tough seeing that sometimes. Um, so I think going back to this thing is, so compared to therapy, I think the problem with therapy that you were saying to me was also how you talk once a week, but there's nothing that was immersive about it. There's nothing that you can
Yeah,
take home and you can go like, okay, here's what I can do to use it in my everyday life, etc. And that's another major difference between therapy and this program as well, is that this program gives you tools that you can actually use to essentially become your own doctor in a way, to
yeah,
diagnose yourself, to treat yourself on the fly, etc.
yeah. I mentioned the process of success a little bit, and at first I was like, I thought I joined this program to have some stuff laid out. Like this is like me teaching myself. Like I don't know what I don't know. Like that's why I'm here, right? But it started to click. It started to click, and being able to for those that don't know what it is what are you thinking? What's your hypothesis? What is your starting point? And then what are all your blind spots? Like
Mhm.
what are all the things you're not thinking? Really conscientiously going through what is not working, what is something you're not considering, what is wrong, and then taking that and doing something with it. Sounds really simple. You're like, well, that's not revolutionary. Um, it's the way you put it in practice, the way you use that constantly to refine what you're doing and go from here to here to here to here to here to here, and just keep building off of that. And it works for anything that's not working.
Yeah.
So if you can take these reinterpretations, these mindsets, you can redo them, and you might have something that's good, you might have something that's helpful, and then you might find it's just good. It's not great. So why is it not great?
I don't
Well,
know.
I can do this. I can do this. And there's no peak you get to where you're done. There's no peak you get to and like, now I've arrived and there's nothing left to do.
Mm.
You just kind of have to keep going. And that kind of little subtle tool underneath everything else kind of just fuels everything, allows you to um, kind of work through your own stuff. Not to need, coaches or programs or everything else to constantly guide you. It kind of lets you take that and internalize it. And then, we talk a lot about principles, having good principles that kind of guide you the rest of the way.
Did you think that that type of solution was possible? Because like you always have this idea from society that, oh, the work that therapists do for you, that's too complex. Like they're so complex that you can never be your own doctor. They go to school for that stuff for 4 years, and there's no way a program can teach you how to be your own doctor and how to heal yourself, stuff like that. Like, did you have those doubts that getting to that level of mastery was even possible, or?
For me, yeah. Because I tried, like I talked about finding some books, and that's actually where some things kind of helped. Is I found some books where I could kind of do some things in the moment. I kind of got it, but they only got me so far. So I was like, oh, the problem's me. Problem's me. Like I'm just not able to do this. I'm just broken, or I'm just back to the hope illusion. I just need to hope that maybe when the kids are older and we're getting more sleep, things will be better. Maybe when maybe I'll grow out of the anxiety. Maybe this, like all these things that probably weren't really the issue, but I would get stuck just kind of hoping. I didn't think. I started to doubt if I could be different, and the harder I tried, especially in that 9 months, um, I always had this like vision that things could be better. I kept having that come to me like, don't give up. But then things would get bad and I wouldn't know. I would start to doubt myself. We
Mhm.
talked about that kind of external resistance becoming internal resistance. And because of all the depressions, I would fall for that really hard. And so I started like, maybe my conviction's wrong. Maybe I'm just deluding myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard, and I keep falling on my face sometimes. And so I didn't know if I could do that. I thought this might just be something I have to live with all my life. And I did that for so much in a relationship where I just won't try in this area.
Mm.
And that was a little bit of kind of the mindset I had coming in.
You just some encouraging words for you, right? Something to think about is, I was probably in a worse position to start out with internally than you were. Like I grew up in a family, Stephen, that didn't teach me anything in terms of like emotional intelligence. My parents, they didn't even sleep in the same bedroom. My mom would go out of town 3 months at a time.
Mm.
I never seen them talk. And so I grew up with social anxiety to the max, right? Depression, ADHD, like you name it. Like I was a mess in my mind. And these processes that I'm teaching you here are the exact same processes that trumped every process that I learned from therapy, from books, from other professionals, etc. And it's what helped me to go from lower than you are, probably more lower than most people at least, to higher than most people, I guess, in the mental state and the mental thrivingness. And I did it without the program, a program, right? I did it without a coach. I did it without the accountability partners, as you say, in the community, in the program. So if I can do it, there's no freaking reason why you can't, kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Like be laid it out for you. And the reason why I created this program is because like I've tried what works and what doesn't, and I know this works. Even 9 years later, I'm still doing this stuff, right? Because it's gotten me here, and it's gonna keep getting me further up and further up and further up. So just a bit of encouragement for you there.
Mhm.
What do you think differentiates you from this Reddit reviewer? In a sense of this Reddit reviewer, right? He's falling for victim mindsets, and the victim mindsets are causing bad life in essence. When he gets the bad life, he's interpreting the bad life from the same victim paradigm that causes more of the bad life, and so on and so on and so on. It's a repeat, right? And there's nowhere in this cycle where it seems like he can wake up to go, oh shoot, I am creating my own reality here in a way. Well, it seems like you were facing the same, very similar bad moments. But instead of doubling down on your paradigms, you said to yourself, let me just embrace the paradigms of this program fully. What made you decide, like what enabled you to trust this program and to trust another method, or to even have that hunger to look for another method?
Um, my own failures. I think in recognizing like what I was doing was not working. Um, it was having limited success. Sure, I could show up, I could do some things, but it wasn't sustainable. I would keep falling, and I started looking. Honestly, when I started looking, it was at a period where things were from the outside relatively okay. We were still separated in the same home, and even we're trying to go on some dates, do some things. But inevitably, I just knew I'm going to do something, and we're going to be right back in it, and we're going to be done. And I didn't want that to happen. I was like, I've been trying this on my own for too long, and I just knew um, that I couldn't keep that pattern. I couldn't keep doing that. I had to change something. So I think having a bit more of an empty cup, knowing knowing that you don't know what you don't know, and knowing that what you're doing, if you keep doing it, you keep having the same paradigms, you keep doing the same um, reactions, same everything, you're just going to repeat the same cycles.
Mm.
Um, was a lot of what let me embrace this. I think the other thing that let me go full in was, um, and I don't know if you want to get into this now or later, but kind of a comparison between this program and another one I was looking at. Um, I can talk about that a little bit. When I
Yeah,
started
let's
looking,
pen on that for
um,
a bit. Pen on
okay,
that for a bit. But another question I get that I'm curious about, right? It's like, so I think what you were alluding to was, I think the cycles of just shit that was happening in your
mhm,
life finally woke you up to the point where you said, this cannot go on anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. And kind of the
mhm,
same catalyst that I had where like I don't want to live in this fear and social anxiety and like I don't want to live this like this anymore. But there's another level to this where you mentioned right back then you said I kind of felt like a martyr a bit,
mm,
where I knew deep down somewhere in the back of my head, I knew I wasn't showing up as my best self. But there's also the other side of you that wants to blame your wife, wants to blame the situation still and say, you know, well, if she doesn't love me, if she doesn't care about me, then screw her, kind of thing. She's not doing the work, so why should I? She's not doing this, so why should I? I feel like that's a really hard one to get out of. What made you? Because like this reviewer, if you think about it,
mm,
he looks at the things that his wife is doing, and he never looks at the stuff he's doing to contribute to that.
mhm,
But instead of always getting to the point where he looks at what he's doing, he doubles down in blaming his wife and blaming his partner. Well, you stop that and you say, like, hold up, right? Sure, my wife is doing ABC, but what is my contribution? What made you
mhm,
decide to like look within to go, ooh, maybe this is me? Because you could, for example, live your whole life just blaming your wife, getting a new relationship, then blaming that wife, getting a new relationship, blaming that person again, and repeat that pattern. You could.
mhm. I think a lot of the marriage, I had a bad illusion where I was good. I was doing all these things. Look at me. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm helping out. I'm great. My wife, she would have a lot of physical illness stuff. So there's periods where she would just be in bed a lot, just not able to do a lot, low energy, just not feeling good. So I, pick things up, do laundry, do dishes, do this, do that. And I feel like, well, aren't I doing enough? Like, why complain about things? Like, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm great. Um, and if I'm not great, well, I'm good enough. Um, and because I couldn't take it, so I would kind of, self defensively. Uh, so I just feel like what I was doing was I was contributing. I'm doing this. I'm a great provider, whatever that might be. And it took listening. It took getting past my own pain to hear really what my partner was saying,
Hmm.
and um, really understand you talk about social anxiety, you talk about different things. I think there was so much in me that was scared of rejection that I couldn't take that. And so when these really critical moments were happening, it wasn't that I didn't care. It wasn't that I didn't care about my life. I felt so much pain, but the problem was so much of the pain was my own pain. And it was what
let me try to describe it this way, because I felt the exact same thing. I remember my wife, when we first moved in, well, back then she was my girlfriend, but when we first moved in together, I remember safety was destroyed. We don't have much safety. We just thought like moving in would be a good step because like maybe it could spark something. I don't know, right?
Mhm,
She moved in. I realized she wasn't very committed. She wasn't really doing much around the house. She didn't really have motivation to like fight for me, to like, we weren't really having sex that often either. It was just bad all around. Um, and so I saw her behaving like that, and I went, you know what? I could respond by being nice right now. I could, but something in me just doesn't want to. Something in me said to me, like, if I see my partner being lazy, for example, and I pick up the work, I pick up the slack, I wash dishes, etc. I'm being kind of a pussy. I'm being a pushover. I'm letting her take advantage of me, right? So then I
mhm,
would not do those things as well, which makes my wife feel less safe, which makes her do more self-preserving things. When
mhm.
she does more self-preserving things that are toxic, in my view, I would power away further again, and we just are stepping back. Each of us are stepping back. Oh, you're stepping back. I'm stepping back then. Oh, you're stepping back. I'm stepping back also then. And it's just that's how the rift
Yep.
creates
All the tit for tat, all the transactional stuff,
all
and
the transactional stuff.
mhm,
And it was the point when I just said like, okay, fuck this shit. Like this is what followers. This is how followers think. Followers think in a way where, oh, my employees are not gonna do it. Why should I? But no, I decided I want to be a leader for the first time in my life, right? She's lazy, she doesn't want to wash dishes, let me do it. All right. But what's funny is that when I started to respond in a more positive way like that, it creates safety for her. Suddenly, me changing that environment makes her want to do more things, makes her more motivated to be there for me, to be more committed. And so all it took was just one person to just break that cycle and go, let me just take control. Let me just take charge. Let me just start the process of changing this environment so that it makes it easy for her to change her environment. And I think you're kind of right now in a position where are you more increasingly surprised as to how much your wife wants to actually show up for you?
oh, mhm. Yeah,
Right?
and the more I lose my own resistance to things, the more I'm accepting that. I'm like, "Oh, this was there the whole time. I was just shutting it down." I was the one creating these situations where I couldn't receive it, and I, made it very hard for it to be given at times, whether it was the feedback or the appreciation, because, I just wouldn't respond well sometimes, and I would, I would take it for granted. I would take sometimes the appreciation or things as an excuse to kind of let off, or just all kinds of talking about all the different layers, lots of different layers, all just kind of slowly destroying the safety, slowly. And then, well, I see her pulling back. Well, I, you know, get like this and um, get offended, and then I'm going to act offended. I'm going to act passive aggressive. I'm going to be walking around with a cloud over my head. And who wants to be around that person, right? And
Yeah. 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 And on the micro sense, whenever my wife starts to like get offended by what something I said, right? I thrive. I use the frameworks and I just kind of like thrive through it. And it's funny how the moment when she gets offended becomes kind of opportunity to even create more safety in that moment.
mhm,
But if you look at this in a macro sense, right? My wife, when I met her, she didn't want kids. She was the type who just wanted to be single, or not single, but like just, double income, no kids kind of people and just travel the world, whatever it is. 9 years later, she wants 3 kids. And now she's convincing me to have 3 kids instead of one, which is what I wanted. Right? So again, like everyone, everyone's partners is capable of so much more than you think. They're capable of so much more love, so much more like reciprocity, so much more commitment, so much more like just everything than you think. But the main question is, are you creating the environment that makes it easy for her to do those things, for her to become and to reach her full potential? Or are you making it hard for her to do so? Right? And there's a lot of people who would listen to this and say, like, no, Jeff, I'm telling you, I already created enough safety. I already created enough of the right environment. But no matter what I do, she just wants to leave anyway. No matter what I do, she does this anyway. No matter what I do, she thinks about this anyway. For those people, I would say, imagine this. Imagine your partner thinking so lowly of you that your partner's basically saying, hey, I gave you the perfect environment. And even though I gave you the perfect environment, you're such a fucking idiot that even though I give you that, you still don't know how to behave properly. Imagine someone thinking of that about you. When you're saying, I have done everything I can, but despite the best that I can do, my wife still operates like a B. That's what you're saying about your wife. That like, even though I gave her the perfect environment, she's still a B. Right? If you're saying that about someone, how much safety can you really create? How much safety have you really created? And if that's the case, like, do you see the circular argument here of, if you haven't created that much safety, then how can you say you've created the right environment? It just doesn't work. The logic breaks down there. Yeah, I'm excited for you because like I'm excited for you to keep discovering just how much your wife is more capable than you think she is, than she thinks she is even. As you keep creating the right environment and creating the right culture within their relationship, you're gonna keep bringing that potential in her more and more and more and more. It's gonna be beautiful, dude.
Yeah. I think, I had before, I mentioned some things where I just had this feeling or this revelation or whatever it was, I'd pray and be like, is this worth working on? Am I chasing something I shouldn't be chasing by trying to fix this? And in the moments of clarity, it would be there. And it was just like, this can be better than you've ever thought. You've put so much limitations on yourself. You've just settled for right here, just surviving. And you can go way past that. You can go past that. Your wife can go past it. Your family, and you've been selling yourself short. And I think when I found this program, and we can probably talk about more of that later, but it was like, this is it. This is the way I get there.
Let's talk about it.
I've been
Which other program did you look at?
um should I say names?
Um,
Okay.
I
I don't
mean,
Okay, so there was a YouTube series. It's Josh Hudson's program, and I think it's Marriage. What is this called? Can't
Marriage
remember the
Mastery.
Marriage Mastery. Okay, kind of similar to your name at times. I was like, I want to make sure I didn't mix those up. Um, yes, nothing crazy, nothing out there. There's some really toxic stuff. There's some bad stuff out there. I had found his videos during this, and I found something useful. I would kind of watch some things, do that, and you know, common sense kind of stuff would kind of help me check some of my own thoughts at times. And I'm doing this for months, and things are doing this, and over time, slowly looking like it's getting worse and worse because I keep making promises that I can't keep, and um, get to December, and like I got to change this. Like this, I just got to get out of this cycle, and like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna join this guy's program. I had not heard of you. Had if it's ever popped up on YouTube, I don't know, just didn't register. And I'm getting ready to, I have an intake call with this guy on Friday, and totally ready to go. Got the money set aside. I'm gonna do it, and I want to say it was that Tuesday or Wednesday. Um, was just looking at things. You talked about Reddit posts. I think I found looking for reviews of that guy and his program, and saw some things, comparing some things. And there's people talking about Geoffrey's program. I was like, who's this Geoffrey Setiawan guy? Like, who's that? And they're saying some stuff like, yeah, he's like, it's really deep, it's really slow, it's really this, digs into stuff, and kind of a mix of positive and negative. I'm like, the negative sounded positive to me. Um, the fact that it was like, wait, they're talking about like mindsets, and they're talking about this, and they're talking about like you spend all this time working on yourself, and like before you even do anything quote unquote with the relationship, like that's I want that. What is that about? And maybe watch like an hour or two of some of your free material out there. It's like, oh my gosh, like I watched some stuff I think on mindsets, or I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, oh, like blew everything else I'd seen kind of out of the water. I'm like, there's something here. So I have the intake call with the other program on Friday, and they're talking about, we're gonna all these coaches, they'll tell you what to say, they'll tell you this, we'll help you write a letter. We'll dig into all your problems and write this letter to kind of shift the frame and do this. And I was like, that sounds like that sounds like a lot of kind of like quick fixes kind of thing. I've done quick fixes, I've done promises, I've done um, all this stuff to want to be better. That's not the problem. Um, at this point, I'm well aware of a lot of things I'm falling short at. I just don't know how to fix it. And then I had your masterclass that Sunday and went through that, and I was literally at the end, sitting at my desk, like just kind of tears come down my eyes, like this is it. This is everything I have been looking for. Talked about some different things, like the kind of vision I had for what the relationship could be when I could kind of see clearly. One thing I did mention, the thing that kept causing me to fall on my face more than anything else, we talked about the concept of tethering. And over and over and over again, when I would mess up or when I would like really reflect, it was like, I need to let go of the outcome. I need to be okay with this going however it goes, because of my anxiety, because of my fear of rejection, because of a whole bunch of other things. Just couldn't do it. Things would be better when I could.
Mm.
And it was almost like when we would draw back together, like I'd be able to be solid to a certain degree. Kind of where I'm at now, I'm like, oh, that wasn't that solid then either, but to a certain degree, we kind of come closer. And then I would get kind of reattached to that situation or whatever it was. And then any sign that there was tension, any sign of rejection, any sign there was pulling back, I would be right back into quote unquote old Steve. Um, Super anxious, super paranoid, super whatever it was, and it would destroy all that safety again. So I had this idea. I was like, I just need to let go of this. I need to somehow do this. And I just couldn't do it. Like would keep getting reattached. I would keep getting focused on the outcome. And you talked about the masterclass. I'm like, this is it. So I was um, almost 100% in at that. Well, I was 100% in at the point. It's like, I want this more than anything else I've wanted, and I was like, this is going to be more than just a relationship. This is, I think, something I needed for me.
Yeah.
And I can't fix the relationship until I fix me. And this other program wasn't going to do that. This other program was like, here's some tactics, here's this.
And I'm glad you're smart enough to see the difference between us and Josh Hudson, and that,
I
hey,
almost I almost make a mistake. I'm so like it was like literally, like I thought I was guided. I was like, there was someone telling me like, you need to check some stuff out, and just like you just happen to slip in at the exact time before I made probably would have been a really costly mistake. Um, and I'm so thankful for that.
yeah, so glad. So Josh Hudson, and then you, when you applied for the program, I can't remember. Did you get in right away, or did you get
I
flagged? In?
I did. I was so worried. I was like, I I need this so much. So I had my did the master class on a Sunday, applied, had my intake call with Jason on Friday. He's grilling me, he's going through kind of vetting me and do all this stuff. I'm like, please, like, and he's asking me, are you committed to this? Do you want to do this? And it's a fair amount of money, not huge, but a fair amount. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm 100% in. And heck, just what I've heard, like just give me the mindsets and the paradigm shifts and all that. Like that'll be my money's worth right there. Everything else is gravy after that. Um, if we can fix me, like everything else will just take care of itself. So yeah, I got in. they had the intake call that morning, and then that afternoon, got everything processed, and I was in. It was a couple days before Christmas.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't believe that like our filtering people is like not real, right? Because like people think like it's just a marketing tactic, but we had like a couple of guys who sent us an email saying like, "Oh, you turning me down was just a marketing tactic. You just make me feel like I want it more." It's like, hey man, if you think our intention is so evil like that we trick people into like coming to our program like that, then I don't think you're gonna be a good fit. So I don't think we're gonna take you. And then he kind of backtracks and goes like, hold up. I still want a program. It's like, no, dude, like if we take you right now, I'm just gonna prove you right. Like, I'm sorry, I cannot take you.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot. My principles just say I cannot take you because you're not in here for the right reasons. You're not coming here for the right reasons, right? You're coming here not trusting me. You're not coming here like assuming the worst about me. If you're gonna do that, I can't do that. So, you know, yeah. So, we do take just only 1 in 10 people. So, glad you're in. I'm glad we're talking right now. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Uh,
You, you talk about like what I thought about the program early on. I remember, you do these interviews. I remember, again, I really, by the time I had applied, had maybe only seen like 3 hours of content. Like it was not much, but just that I knew. And then, you had one of these interviews with Nick Long, and
he's a great
I
guy.
remember
Have you talked to him since you got in?
no, I haven't. I've
You
never reached
should.
out to him. My
You should.
only interaction was seeing his interview, and then a little bit of Facebook stalking. Like, I wonder how he started. And watching one of his first films is like, oh my gosh, yeah, this guy is me in a lot of ways, and just further cemented like this was the right decision. This is the right place to be.
Yeah. So when you first got in, though, you mentioned it is a bit of a culture shock for people because,
Yeah.
like, I think
Oh yeah.
the price tag of 4,000, right? It's like a price of a beat up old car. Like, it's not much. It sounds like a lot at first, but like, you think about a program and you think like, okay, I'm just gonna learn a few things here and there. Good, good. But then you go into the program and it's like, oh shit, this is a whole lifestyle overhaul. This is a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. Did you have that shock when you first came in?
I was familiar with the idea of like doing deeper work. Like I'd done the EMDR, I'd done this. I finally learned the lesson in a few years before, like you need to kind of go towards the pain, not run away from it to actually fix some stuff. So I
Mm.
was like, oh, I'm ready. I want this. I want this. And I think sometimes that hunger also blinded me. Like, Jason's telling me it's gonna be a lot. Like, you ready? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready. I got this. And you know, I got in there and I'm like, okay, great. And I'm like, but then I was like, there's all these Facebook posts, there's these like ways of doing things. It's really fast, tough love of uh, we expect you to own your shit and to respond a certain way and to, you know, not be like, oh, woe is me, please help me. We expect a little bit better than that. And I was like, oh man. And I still had a little bit of those bad thoughts and things, but dude, I'm trying here. I'm trying really hard. And like, you're like throwing this back in my face. And I look at it later. I'm like, oh, no one's throwing it back in my face. They're just like, dude, we're trying to get you to think for yourself. Like, wake up. And, and so initially I was like, oh, you know, can I do this? I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Like, this is what I need. This is the fact that I'm having this reaction in the first place is the very problem, which is why I'm here.
Yeah.
Um, and what I saw maybe as a flaw was exactly perfect. It was what was needed, and it has I talk about being able to receive feedback, being able to receive it in a safer place. I mean, why am I going to get freaked out over people over Facebook? But yet, because I was so in that, I was like, oh my gosh, well, of course this is the problem. If I can't do it here, why? How am I going to do it when there's a person I care about more than anyone else who's threatening, like, upending her life, my life, over stuff that I can't seem to control. I keep messing up. That's way scarier than someone, hey, you should learn to catch your own fish. Like, if I can't take that message there, how am I going to do it anywhere else?
Yeah.
So that was really, really helpful.
And I think that that realization that you said about like, hey, the reason why I'm reacting so adversely to tough love, to complexity, to this stuff in general, to feedback in general, is the exact reason why I'm here. Is the exact reason why I couldn't create safety in the first place. Is the reason why my partner stopped believing in me and believing in my potential. And that's really the crux of what we do, right? It's you know, I had this announcement, I think, before you joined, and there was this guy. He was complaining about like our tough love and how I wasn't creating like a safe environment, whatever it is, right? And I said to him, like, when I designed this program way back when, I decided to myself that I wanted to design this program for the A plus players or people who want to be A plus. And if I design the program to be complex, to be tough for an A plus player like that, I know that the people who only want B's, C's, D's, or just pass, they're gonna hate it. The same way if you go to a school, right? And I gave him this example actually. Like if you let's say, okay, go to Little League baseball, right? If you just want to be the best Little League player, great, right? Go to Little League and they will give you participation trophies. They'll tell you like you're doing a great job. They'll tell you like, oh, you had three, you didn't have any home runs today. You didn't have any hits today. That's okay. We can do better next time, right? But imagine if you're in the MLB. That's different. People who are in the MLB, they want something different. Those are the people who want to be A plus world class. And if they go through a game without having a hit, without having a run, their pitching was bad. And not only are other people, the coaching staff, going to give them hell, because the coaching staff knows they can and should do better. Why aren't you? But the player themselves are going to be hard on themselves too. So if we create this curriculum for you, and the curriculum is too hard for you, too challenging for you, and too tough for you, you're just not meant to be in major leagues. If you don't want to be in major leagues, that is fine. But don't complain about the fact that you're in Little League and nobody cares about you. And you're not getting the life that you want. You're not getting the money that you want, maybe. You're not getting the attention that you want. You're not getting the people flocking to you like you want. All right? But if you want to be in major leagues, you want to get the people flocking to you. You want to get the success. Then you have to play by major league standards. And you cannot complain about major league standards. I think so. That's what I said to him. And so right now, like when you're complaining about the tough love, what does it say about you? Does it say you want to be a little leaguer, or does it say you want to be a major leaguer?
I think to your point, it totally says more about the recipient. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea about this program. When we talk about tough love, I haven't seen a single mean comment. It's not like, you idiot or this or that. There's nothing like that. It's really just like these gentle but firm kind of things. If you look at the actual words, it's like, oh, there's no one beating anybody up here. We'll call out BS. We'll tell people, this or that, but it's the BS. It's not the person. And it's really trying to be a wake up call. It's really trying to do that. And the reason it's so hard, it's so tough, is because some of us don't like to hear that. Some of us like are so allergic to, our ego is so fragile. We talk about being fragile, and trying to get just that realization, like, okay, yeah, need to get over that. Need to understand that it's emphasis on the love part, that this is love and this is help coming to avoid a lot of pain down the road.
Yeah. It's like we care more about your results than your feelings, right? It's like, do you want? I give this example a lot of the opioid crisis thing, right? It's like I know what you want. I know you want someone to tell you that you're already awesome, that this is maybe your wife's fault, maybe you've done everything you can, you've done great job, right? Your changes are amazing. I know what you want me to hear, but I'm not gonna say that if I don't think it's true. The same way, if the reason why the opioid crisis started, right? It's like a bunch of people went to the hospital for major pain in their body. They go to the doctor. Doctor, give me more morphine. Give me more opioids. Give me more painkillers. And the doctor's like, dude, I cannot give you more. Because if I give you more, you're going to be addicted for the rest of your life. I'm going to screw up your life. But of course, like if the doctor says no, what happens? People start to hate on the doctor. The same way people hate on us sometimes, right? People tell us like, oh, they're too tough. They're like almost like red pilly. And like whatever
Yeah.
fucking things people say, right? I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that bad review. But if I get those kind of bad reviews, but I back it up with results day in, day out, that's good, right? Within a day. The same with the doctor, right? It's like if he says no, he risks getting bad reviews, but he knows deep down in his mind, I am saving someone's life right now. If he gives that painkiller, he would get amazing reviews. My hospital stay was so pain-free, it was so comfortable, their service was so amazing. But guess what? 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, when you're still addicted to painkillers, how many of those people would actually blame the doctor? None. We're taking such a hard way right now, right? But people don't appreciate it, which is kind of annoying for me, but it's okay. I'm gonna do what I'm doing, right? So I'm glad that you had that mentality about taking our kind of culture and a kind of approach to coaching, because at the end of the day, like you said, we do that because we know you can and should do better. So why aren't you? Like you're surrounded by thousands of people who are literally there for with your best interest at heart. Like I just want the best for you. I just want you to not do and make the mistakes that I made, that I've seen thousands have made. Please don't do that. That's it. And if you cannot take tough love from someone who has your best interest at heart, who can you take tough love from?
Yeah.
Who can you take feedback from? You know, no wonder your partner cannot feel safe, because like even your coaches cannot tell you what you need to hear. I mean, how can your partner tell you what you need to hear?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's go into like some of the little takeaways that you had as well. So you said process of success, antithetical thinking. I think we talked more about a bit about this before, but I just want to say one thing here and then kind of let you expand on this, right? It's, you know, growing up, Steve and I saw relationships and emotions. It's very much like an art. Like, I think it's very similar to what you thought. Like, you either have a good relationship or you don't. You either know how to be a good partner or you don't. You either know this stuff or you don't. It's instinctual. But what I did was like I looked at it when I was a kid. I was like, there's no way. There's no fucking way. There has to be a way where I can break that into a science. And so what I did was I created this program by breaking internal shift into a science, breaking love into a science, right? And that's, I think, what you were saying when you say like, now I understand how to break things down, how to deconstruct what I'm feeling and how to reconstruct what I'm shifting to in a very precise, in a very scientific manner, in a very replicable manner. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. And at a low level,
Mm.
you know, we can always find some high level stuff of what didn't work because of this, but like, well, why? Why that? Why did, why, you have the 4 buckets. You have, like all the way down to the learning principles. Most people don't think of, I'm going to join a relationship program to learn how to learn. That's not usually on their criteria list. That's how far we go to do that. And if you can't learn, you can't change the way you think. You're probably going to keep doing the same stuff. So even getting down to that and like breaking apart is good. And I think one thing that's been nice is, way I've been approaching this, I just have like I use a tool called Notion. So it's kind of little databases in there.
My
And
wife uses it.
I have a little table that's all of my DPPs or process of success reflections. And I have like all my little synthesis there. So if I need to go back and like, what are the things I learned that I might have forgotten or am unlearning or need to like re-cement, they're right there. And there's the context, there's the why, these are the blind spots. Because what I found for myself, it's not enough to learn it once. Sometimes I have to learn it a couple times. Sometimes I have to not just conceptually learn it, but experientially learn it, and it becomes a habit. It's not a kind of a striving, I'm going to do it through willpower, but like this is, how can I get this to be the default state?
My default, yeah, my default state.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
Like, I always say, right, there's a reason why you are however old you are to a new client, right? There's a reason why you are however old you are, and you can be amazing at your job at learning hard skills, but you haven't learned how to learn soft skills. Because learning
Yeah.
soft skills is a very different ballgame, right? So learning soft skills is a game where you need to see through your blind spots. You need to see through abstract concepts, soft concepts. That's hard. That's different. Hard
Mhm.
concepts, mathematical equations, I can just point to the board and go like, here's what we're seeing together, right? But with emotions, I can point to you, like the guy in the Reddit review. Like we can try. I haven't tried. I don't respond to those things anymore. But we can try to like tell them like, dude, you're falling for this victim mindset. They cannot even see it. Even when we point out to them like, this is what is happening right now, they can't see it, right? So it
Mhm.
takes a very different style of thinking and different style of learning, which is why we dive deep into like teaching you back into like school. Here's how to learn in school again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? One thing about the tough love and the therapy I just popped in my head is like one of the things that you talk about those blind spots, and therapy will also sometimes tell you what you want to hear, kind of codes or things like that. And it doesn't really break down like this is where you can't see. This is where you're just getting it wrong. This is where you are so stuck in a certain way of viewing things that you
Yeah.
can't get out of it. And I think one thing that's really great about the program is how in depth you go, whether it's learning or anything. Like, again, I had blind spots that I didn't realize were blind spots. And to have you very thoroughly go through that and get past my protective armor, my whatever you want to call that, that's like keeping me from seeing it because something inside is just dumb or just can't. Like one of my problems was you talk about the innate thing and break it down. I think I had a belief that like, oh, some of this is innate. Some of this is just I'm just not good at this side of relationship. So I'm gonna be better at the taking care of dishes or doing this side. Um, and I didn't realize how much that was there until like none of this is fixed. There's no unique circumstances. There's no this like there's no I have anxiety or I have this or I keep making this same mistake. So therefore I'm flawed and I can't do this. Like just pulling that all apart to, oh, yeah, actually, let me examine that. Let me take that apart.
Yeah.
Um, that's been good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think um, you know, I've enrolled like 5,000 people now. I don't think I've ever had one where I listened to the story and I went like, that's different. That's outside this program. Like it's legit, like everything's the same. You look at every single interview, for example, you'll realize, okay, you take their unique situation, whatever they're facing, there's unique.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, what broke down? The five pillars. Why were the five pillars broken down? Because internal shifts were off. What internal shifts were off? Victim mindsets, DODs, tetheredness, right? Hypothetic thinking, FAA bias, the same usual suspects. Why are those broken? And why are you so blind to it? Because bucket four, which is your learning principles, the way you see the world, doesn't allow you to see through your blind spots. You fix all those things, you fix a lot. You fix everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, we talk about dispelling and reconstructing victim mindsets. Uh, do you want to go more into specifics on kind of the key victim mindsets or maybe the key DODs that you fell for that was like, whoa, I can't believe I was so blind to it. This is life-changing.
Um, I talked about the hope illusion a little bit. That was one of the like big blind spot ones. I think unique circumstances was not blind. I didn't know how to fix it. I put so much on like my anxiety, my depression. Like why am I even in relaxed situations with my kids? Why do I feel so like I can't relax? Um, I knew that, but I didn't know what to do about it. And I had a lot of, probably no surprise we talk about depression, a lot of self-flagellation, um, a lot. And, you know, one thing about the program, and even the process of success, why that's so good. You talk about no unique circumstances. So it's the same stuff for everybody. But how you apply that, all the little nuances of
Yeah.
your exact situation, that's where that comes in.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing's like, I hadn't gotten to the DODs and I was just stuck on victim mindsets for a while because I was like, I, I'm doing unique circumstances, I'm doing this, and like, I still, sort of feel like I'm still like I'm not where I want to be. And I ended up doing some stuff that was basically kind of just impossible. This really helped in these areas. Let me just kind of do it a little different. I essentially did a reinterpretation of self-flagellation before I knew what that really was.
Mm.
And that was like, well, it's the same principles, the same processes. Um, and you talk about making this program from scratch. You take these principles and this builds onto this, and this builds on this, and this builds on this, and it's a testament to that, because these little subtle things do create these more high layer
Yeah.
things like that. I think what has really helped is you know getting past my own walls, getting past my own, you know I can't pull this off, I can't do this, or um, things are too hard. I'm also going to school full time, and had took a little break from that, and there's a lot going on, a lot of other things, and I would get so stressed by school because I'm working full time, doing this, all this other stuff, and I just started back up this month after taking a little bit of break, and in the past I've been freaking out, and I'm like, it's gonna be okay, that's good. Um, there's nothing unique about that. Like, yeah, just get some time pressure, I'll make it work, and that's such a shift from where I used to be, where it's like, oh, all these external circumstances, all these things that are gonna, cause me to fail, or I can't succeed, or it's out of my control. So that's a lot on the victim mindsets, and just sort of how that shift has made me see my own capability and my own ability to take accountability and actually do something
You're more
versus
of a
just
you're
mope
more of a
around.
hero than you think if you allow yourself to.
Yeah.
You're capable of more than you think if you allow yourself to just do it sometimes. Uh, I want to touch on a few things, right? It's like people always say, well, because you haven't gone to the frameworks yet, but you have learned the TTH.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've used the TTH quite a bit as well. But you see how like the TTH comes so naturally when you learn the internal shifts and you take it to heart and you do it properly, right? Because like just like any performance, right? Mindset is 90% of the game. Like
Hmm.
golf, whatever, you play world-class golf, you play world-class basketball. Everyone is fit, everyone is good at basketball, everyone has a technique down. What differentiates the best of the best from the bench players is really just in here, right? So we focus so much on internal shifts because like that is 90% of the game. And so if you
Oh
join
yeah.
a program that has like all just tactics and teaches you how to like write letters and shit, that's fine, but you're only learning 10% of the game. Even
Hmm.
if you ace that shit, right? You're still majorly failing
Yeah,
by
you didn't
any
fix the seed of the
definition.
problem.
Yeah. And when you get the internal shifts right, everything just comes a lot more naturally. And it creates safety in the effect you want indirectly, right? Because like it allows you to interact in a much more proper way, but it also creates it very directly as well. Because let's say, okay, your wife can finally see you now, and she sees that whenever you're facing a very stressful moment, you're thriving through it. You're not stressed. You're not breaking down. You're not a shell anymore. You're actually just you have life. You have passion. You have some fire inside you. Do you think that's gonna make her feel safe? Hell yeah.
Way more. Yeah,
Hell
way
yeah.
more than
That's
before.
gonna make your son feel safe. I mean, you're saying your children is like, oh, I love dad. Like I see
Hmm.
the changes too. The internal shifts don't underestimate that, right? You can do
Hmm.
so much if you take that shit seriously. But I feel like a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And it's when you think about relationship programs, as our culture, we're just not programmed to think about that. It's all about, like, even marriage counseling isn't really about internal shifts. Um, and
Yeah, we
we're just not we're
we did
not looking for the right thing so often.
we did this marriage counseling one time, or like couples counseling, right? And then they just told us like, just go home and like just hold each other and stare into each other's eyes for 30
Uh-huh.
minutes. And let yourself feel things. I'm like, but this is not fixing all the shit, all the baggage, all the things that we have in our mind. Like, sure, we're creating connection right then, but I'm still feeling bitter right now, man. It doesn't fix that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we fix that? Can we fix how I react? Like,
Yeah.
um, that's the problem. Um, yeah.
Hunter and farmer mindset, weather versus climate. This is the big one.
Yeah. So as someone allergic to criticism, feedback, or things like that, and I talked about kind of reconnecting and then being really sensitive to all of the negatives. This was effing me up, and I did not have this concept coming in. There are some things where I maybe had prototypes of it. This was new, and I was like, take the long view. Don't get so focused on the ups and downs. Don't get so focused on, the hunter thing of just where's it at right now? Where's it at right now? I need this. I need this reassurance. This very needy place, and then everything's fine. Okay, everything's fine. I don't have to do anything, and that kind of yo-yo effect of that, and then the climate versus weather of just like always checking. Are we okay? Where's it at? It's stormy, so everything's awful, and it's never going to change. And just kind of getting very hopeless or whatever it is, and just like, no, just look at the trajectory. Where are you going? Are you better this week than you were 2 weeks ago? Are you better this month than you were 2 months ago? Good. Keep doing that. Don't worry so much. Don't get so freaked out. Don't spend time on true but useless thoughts about the exact moment.
Yeah.
And I would destroy my own safety by getting stuck in those patterns, by being so focused on where things are at or how my wife was reacting. Is she pulling towards? Is she pulling away? Am I screwing everything up right now? And by doing that, I would destroy my own safety. And of course, now I'm freaking out. Now I'm like internally a bit of a mess. I can't respond. I'm stammering. I'm, crumbling. And what did I do? I just made a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
Or I wasted the good situations because I would do that. So just taking that kind of longer view and being present, just being okay, just being steady has been a big one.
And I think we're gonna make a video on this soon on untethering in general, and we talk about, biologically speaking, we have been hunting and gathering for millions of years, and only in the last, I would say, like a couple of hundred years or a couple of thousand at most, after the farming revolution, agricultural revolution, and industrial revolution, that farming, we now need to farm. Like if you look at, back then when you were a hunting and gathering, right? The person who was driven most by hunting and gathering, by what they feel now, by the situation now, is the best. They survive because that makes you a better hunter. But look at what it takes to be successful now, post farming revolution and also industrial revolution. It takes you to be a farmer. It takes you to see the long term, right? You want to be successful in a business, you're not gonna have that overnight. You're gonna have many decades, even sometimes many years or decades sometimes, of you seeing nothing before, and you having to follow the process and seeing nothing before you get to see the results way delayed, right? Relationship, same thing. The seeds you plant today is not gonna matter. It's not gonna sprout tomorrow. The seeds you plant today is gonna sprout in many months later, many years later sometimes. But our brain is so wired to be hunters because we've evolved to be hunters, that this is another one of those instances in life where we need to fight nature a bit. We need to battle nature because nature wants us to be hunters. Nature wants us to, in essence, take debt, right? If you look at debt, financial debt is about making it easy for yourself now, but you're making it harder for you in the future. You're borrowing from the long term to fund the short term, to make it easy for the short term. And a lot of people do that. And you mentioned this too, like you are so desperate in wanting to make now feel good that you are willing to take debt from the long term and make the long term harder so that you can feel good now. And what's funny is that when you fast forward to later on in the future, you feel worse later. And guess what? You take on more debt from the long term to fund, to make you feel better now. Well, people just need to bite the bullet and say like, no, 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 no. I'm about to be bankrupt right now. Screw this. I'm not gonna borrow anymore. Let me finally learn how to build my freaking farm right now. I'm not whatever seeds I plant today is not gonna get me anything. I'm not gonna see anything for a while, but it's okay. Which is why
Mhm.
we teach people to be untethered, to tether to the process instead. Because once you love the process of farming intrinsically, before you know it, your farm is fucking massive. But if you keep hunting, you keep just feeding yourself for a day and you keep borrowing in the long term, oh, that's a tough life. That's a tough cycle to be
Yeah.
in, you know?
And I think it reinforces the wrong mindsets. Like you start correlating the wrong things together.
Mm,
Like you can be doing the wrong things and get some, false reconciliation. You can be doing the right things and get some resistance. And you can take the wrong lesson from that. And I think taking that long view of like, is the right thing the right thing? Keep doing it. Is the wrong thing the wrong thing? Keep doing it. Don't worry about the initial, you know, momentary circumstance because it doesn't pay out
yeah.
right then. That's a wrong thing to look at.
So you could write your wife a letter
Mhm,
and you could, for example, like get her to go, maybe, maybe,
mhm.
but short term, but long term, what if she sees that your letter wasn't really legit? You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I I could say things. I could try to say I was going to be better or do this, or I recognize these problems. That wasn't my problem. My problem was shifting the stuff inside. So yeah, got to do the long, hard work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you mind untethering? I think we discussed most of what we wanted to talk about here, my guy. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add?
Let me look at some notes I took before, see if there's anything else that's come to mind. I think we covered most of it. I just super grateful. Like, the thing, I come from a religious background, and it's not the point of this program or anything like that, but like, I feel like it's been an answer to prayers. I think of what you're doing to, take some broken down souls, lost souls, and kind of bring those back and just you're not just healing people, you're healing families. And it's something that I think just talking about the farming thing,
Mm,
generational over and over. You talked about kind of your upbringing and some of the hardship there. And my wife and I both have had not the best childhoods. And, we're trying to make that better for our kids and trying to do that. And, I have hope now that I didn't have before. And in myself. And it's not just affecting me, it's affecting my children and it's going to ripple. And I'm so, so grateful. So that's just something I wanted to say. Just say thank you.